Hello and welcome to this review video. I'm Anthony. In this video I'm going to be reviewing DAS clay. Now it's not the DAS clay that you've probably already seen in the shops, which is the white, the terracotta or the stone finish. This is a new clay from DAS and it's called DAS wood. So as the name suggests, it actually has wood fibres embedded in the clay. So how does that differ from the normal clays that are available from DAS? Well, with this one, as well as sculpting it like you would a normal clay, during the drying process, you can actually chisel it. And then when it's fully dried, you can then sand it. So it's very much a hybrid clay. It's available in two different pack sizes. So you can go for either the 700 gram or the 350 gram. Now, as you can see, my pack is yet to be opened. So we are all going to dive in together and see how good DAS wood actually is. So before we dive in and actually open the DAS wood, let's have a look at the packaging to see if there's any information that we can gain from it. So you'll see it says wood modelling clay and it's air hardening or air drying, and it does indeed contain tender wood fibre. So that's all very interesting. Let's just have a look on the side of the packaging and you'll see it says that it's slow drying, carve while drying, or as I said earlier, you can chisel it. And it says paint once dried. So it's all the sort of things you'd expect from a clay. Right, without further ado, let's actually open this pack of DAS wood and see what's inside. Right, so just turning the pack over, you can see there's a tab on here. Okay, so a sticky tab. That's going to come in handy when we actually seal the packet up a little bit later. It's recommended using some scissors, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it as far up as I possibly can. Okay, so it's going to give us more room to actually lay the packaging back on itself and hopefully get a seal. I'm just going to take some out. This is the first time I've ever used this. Wow, this is quite an unusual clay. So what I can see here, it's very crumbly indeed, almost like a cookie dough mixture. Let's just have a closer look. So it's very unlike any of the other DAS clays. You can see it does literally crack when you start to manipulate it. So as I said, very much like a cookie dough consistency. But let's have a look and see how it actually performs. The first thing we're actually going to try this with is a mould. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fill this mould in its entirety and then we're going to pop it in the freezer, because I know that way that when it all comes out, it's going to be as good as it possibly can. Nothing's going to stick into the mould, or that's hopefully what's going to happen. But give us a couple of minutes and I'll come back and I'll show you the clay all in the mould. Okay, I've placed all of the clay into the mould. I'm not going to say it was the easiest of things to do, because although it's actually quite a soft product, it's also quite dry as well. So it is quite difficult. I'm not saying it's very difficult, but it's, you know, it's not the easiest compared to other clays I've used to actually put in a mould. Right, now the reason I haven't gone right down to the bottom here is because I have this tube that I made out of some paper. I've just used some double-sided tape in there and put some masking tape just to hold it in place. So there's the seam of it there. So I'm just going to pop that on that side and then I'm going to roll it over, and as you can see, by the time I get to the other side, that part of the mould is going to go round like a section of this cylinder. But what we're going to do, we're going to wrap this cylinder in clay. In the meantime, I'm going to pop this in the freezer. So I'm going to roll this out, and what I'm doing, I'm not putting too much pressure on. Okay. And I'm not keeping the rolling pin in one place for too long, because even with a nylon rolling pin, as you can see, it is actually sticking to the surface of it. So like I said, although it's actually dry, it is actually quite sticky. So leave this with me and we'll come back when we have a nice large sheet of clay that we can wrap around our cylinder. Cut ourselves a nice, well, I say nice, let's just give that another cut. Okay, so really just take that away. So it's going to give us a nice starting point. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that on and I'm going to roll that clay round to that point. Okay, so just bear with me while I go round. Okay, like so. And then we're just going to, again, just cut that clay the best we can. Okay, and then just using our fingers, I'm just going to blend, or attempt to just blend that clay in. Not bothered if there's lumps and what have you at the moment, so we can go round there and we can clean that up. So at the moment, that is our clay pot. Okay, it's a little bit baggy on that sleeve. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take off some of the excess clay around the edges. Okay, so I'm just going to use the cardboard as the guide here to actually just take off and just clean off either end, and obviously it's going to be less weight for the clay to actually put the pressure on that card cylinder that we've made underneath. So it's quite easy to cut. As you can see, I'm just using a large craft knife just there. Okay, just take that away. Okay, like so. Okay, obviously we can see that join. Like I say, I'm not going to worry too much about that at the moment. I'm just going to go round to this side, and I'm going to do exactly the same again, just trim back that clay. So I'm just going to bring in some water here, and we're going to see if we can just clean up some of this a little bit. Okay, and there we go, just by adding water to it, okay, because this is a water-based clay, it's just going to help smooth it out and really make sure that seam where the two sides actually join hopefully sticks really nicely. As soon as you put the water on, it really does start to smooth that out really nicely. Okay, so it's almost got like the consistency of sand on a beach. Wet sand on a beach is really quite an extraordinary clay, that's for sure. So I'm just going to go round there to the places that just need a little bit of smoothing off, cleaning up. Okay, just by using a damp finger on there. Okay, right, so I'm going to leave that as it is. I've just cleaned it up as much as I possibly can, and I'm just going to leave that to dry. Now it does actually say that it could take a couple of days, so I will just wait and see that happen. In the meantime, we will go and grab the piece that I've left in the freezer, because that should be about 45 minutes now, and then I'll wrap that round and we'll see if we can actually get that to stick to this, and then we're going to leave it to completely dry for a couple of days. So before I actually go and get the mould out of the freezer, I'm just going to use some cardboard here. I'm just going to roll it up, okay, slightly smaller than what this tube is here. I'm just going to pop that inside there and just let it unravel. So that is basically going to help support the clay once we put it on top. So obviously that piece that we've got in the freezer at the moment, there's going to be a lot of weight on there, and the cylinder that I already made probably isn't going to be able to support that. I'm probably going to put another couple of rolls of cardboard in there as well, like I say, purely just to help support the overall structure of this piece. So it's fresh out of the freezer. It's been in there for about 45 minutes. So I'm just going to take that one out, get rid of the bag, and let's just have a look to see if we can get this out of the mould. Now this is admittedly a rather delicate mould, as in the sense it's got lots of detail, so you know, even normal clay would probably be a little bit difficult to release in this, so I have gone for the extreme. So I want to test the clay to its limits, as I always tend to. So I'm just going to pop that onto the surface. I think it's probably just cracked. Let's have a look and just peel that back. There we go. That's pretty nice. Let me just see if I can lift that up. Obviously it is very delicate, so I'm just going to pull it off the table onto there. There we go. And there you can see, look at that. That's really picked up the detail a lot better than I thought it would. So at the moment that is actually relatively frozen, so it's not that flexible at the moment. Okay, let me just show you. There we go, that bit that has broken off there. Not to worry, we can add that back on. So I've just got to let that basically warm up a little bit so I can then manipulate it and place it around our container. So we're just going to leave that for about 10 minutes and then we'll come back to that and we'll see if we can pop that around our container. So when the piece starts to get a little bit of shine, as you can see it has done there, that's basically because it's now starting to defrost, so it's a bit more flexible, as you can see on the mould. So I'm just going to bring my cylinder back in, okay, and as you can see I've reinforced that with lots of card there, so it should be able to take the weight of the clay piece that we put on. So I'm just going to pop that on its side. Okay, it could all go horribly wrong here, so I'm just going to take our clay piece, okay, and you do need to like support it as much as you possibly can, okay, but this one, like I say, is extremely delicate. There we go, it's falling apart at the seams. Not to worry too much, okay, I'm just going to stick that down the best I can, okay. So because the clay is still wet, okay, that's actually on there, I should be able to just press that down. So I'm using a cake decorating tool here, it's called a Dresden tool, okay, so I'm just literally just pressing that down all the way around. Okay, and add a little bit of water to the mix as well. So I'm just going to get a paintbrush, I'm just going to pop that underneath, okay. So that's going to just make everything really, or hopefully really sticky, so everything actually just sits on there nicely. Okay, so just go around there. So I just need to get a little bit of water under there, and again just press that in place. So just adding that water in there will hopefully make everything stick. Obviously it's going to be a long time before we actually know whether it's stuck, because it does have quite a long drying time. And I'm just going to reattach, okay, that one there, okay, like so. And again, using my Dresden tool, I'm just going to help just press that all into place. Obviously you don't want to apply too much pressure, because if you do, that's when you're going to completely obliterate all the detail that was on your moulded piece. Okay, we're just going to add some water to the back of that. So this one is defrosted, so it's going to be pretty damp anyway, and I'm just going to apply some water to where we're going to attach that as well. Okay, if you see any other bits that need your attention, now is the time to do it. So you can see this clay on the container is still very wet, very sticky, as you can see. There we go. When I'm dragging the brush over, it's creating a texture, so in theory that should act like a glue for the piece that's going to go on. So again, just be very careful not to squash anything. I'm just going to take this piece here. I don't know how I'm going to take this piece here. Let's have a look. We're going to go that way, and then we're going to go that way. There we go. So I'm just going to drag that around a bit, manipulate it. There we go. Pull that over there. There we go. And just attach that. Just be a little bit more water just around there and up there. Okay, and again using my cake decorating tool just to nudge things about a little bit, and then just really make sure that that is going to stick in place. Okay, right, so leave me to this and then I'll come back and we'll have a look. So there we go, that's all now stuck into position. Okay, so now it's just a case of literally just leaving it and seeing what happens. So it could take about 36 hours, could possibly take even a week to dry. But that's the thing with any clay piece really that's air drying, it's going to take time, you have to be patient. So now I'm just going to make a simple decoration. So what I've done, I've rolled out some clay, as I did before, and I've cut a circle out of that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean up the edges. So I'm just going to simply use some water, okay, on my fingers. I'm just going to go all the way around there. So it's just to clean that up. Okay, so this is going to be a really simple decoration. Okay, so first of all, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use a tool here just to make a hole through it. So we're just going to make sort of like a hanging plaque. But obviously, because it's sort of like a wood finish, I think sort of like giving it too perfect a finish on it is probably going to ruin the actual look of it. Okay, so I'm just going to grab a piece of paper just to stick this piece on. So here's a piece that I have. Okay, I'm just going to lay that in place, and then I'm just going to press in, and these are just cookie cutters, so I'm just going to place one of those into there. So this would give us that sort of look as though it has actually been carved. Okay, so let's just press that in very carefully, lift that up. There we go, there's one little heart there. So for the 3D heart, I'm just going to press that in to the clay, like so. Okay, there it is. Okay, and then we're just going to basically just trim around that using a craft knife. Let's hope so anyway. Okay, just add a little more definition to the heart. Okay, I think we can all tell that is a heart still, so I'm just going to use some water, okay, just to go around that. Pop some water on the back, so really want to get it as sticky as we possibly can, and then likewise on the area that we want to stick it on there. Okay, and then we're going to, let's have a look, we're going to stick that one just on there. Okay, give that a little bit of a press down, okay, just so it starts to stick. And then I'm just going to go around again, just using my finger. So what I'm doing, I'm just trying to make that heart even more sort of like rounded on the corners. Okay, I'm just going to brush round there just to tidy things up a little bit. Not too worried because we can sand it afterwards. Just trying to clean it up a little bit. Right, and again we're just going to leave that one to fully dry, and as you can see there, it is quite thick, so it could take a couple of days. It's probably best not to force dry it because the clay could well crack, so just be patient, let it dry naturally. So another thing that we need to find out regarding the clay is, does it shrink? The other DAS clays and all other clays, air drying clays that I know, they do shrink by about 10 to 15%. So this is purely just an experiment to see how much the clay actually shrinks once it's fully dry. So what we'll do, we'll cast this and then I'll pop it in the freezer as I did before, and then we'll just let them air dry naturally, and then we will place them back over the mould once they are fully dry, and then we'll be able to tell how much shrinkage is involved. This is quite important if you're going to be making anything that needs to be a certain measurement, i.e. if you're going to be wrapping the clay around maybe a glass jar, because if it does shrink significantly then it will crack if it's around something that's not going to give at all. The cylinder that we did a little bit earlier, I popped some cardboard on the inside of that, so that basically will give if the clay does shrink at all. But this would be a real clear indication of how much the clay does actually shrink. So this is a drying update. I made these on a Tuesday, it's now a Friday morning, and as you can see I'm not going to overly bend these, but these are still flexible, so they still haven't dried. I very much doubt they're actually going to dry within the 7 days it actually says. You can see the colour change on this one. The outer part is changing colour, but still in the centre there we're quite dark. On the back side of this there are some cracks, okay, but that could be actually in the process of making it where I rolled it out, so not too sure about that. Our big project here, which is sort of like the vase, you can see this is definitely changing colour, so it's definitely getting drier, but on the really thick pieces it's still quite dark. And as you can see, I'm just going to flex this just very, very carefully. It's still very soft, so I'm just going to speed up hopefully the drying process of this a little bit more so we can get some air on the inside. So those tubes that I made originally of the cardboard, I'm going to take those out now, so you can see doing it this way you can curl it back up and it doesn't really ruin the overall effect at all of the inner structure. Okay, let's take this one out, and I can feel the cardboard is quite damp, so it's certainly trying to dry. I'm just going to remove the tab I put in there, okay, and that's with the masking tape, so just take that off. Now comes the bit that I'm a bit worried about. It's actually removing the inner tube. So I stuck it with double-sided tape on the inside in hope that I'd be able to remove it without damaging anything. There we go. That was pretty successful. So as you can see, the tube is very damp. So hopefully now that there's no cardboard in there, the air will be able to get in there and also dry, not only from the outside but also from the inside out, if that makes sense. So I've got to be very careful with this. Once this is a bit drier, then I can add the base to our little pot. So I'm going to leave that again, and we're going to come back and see when it's finally cured. So after 7 days, yes, that's 7 days, it has finally dried. So the wood clay has finally dried. You can see there it sort of like has dried with a nice texture on the bit that we sort of like did by hand, which we rolled out. And then where we've actually cast it, you'll see that's really nice and smooth. So it looks as though it's a slightly different colour, but it's purely because the surface is smoother. So to smooth this surface down just a little bit more, which you can see it is rather textured, especially sort of like up here, I'm going to use some really fine graded sandpaper. I'm just going to go in there and just slightly just clean some of this up. So that is, I think, all the sanding that I'm going to do. I've just sort of smoothed it off a little bit. It still gives a little bit of roughness there, so adds a little bit of interest. I'm going to dry brush that, okay, but I'm just going to go over that and just make sure that all the dust has actually come off first. And talking of the dust, this is the dust. So this is exactly like sawdust. It absolutely is, and obviously that's down to the wood fibres that we've just sanded off. So leave me to it. I'm just going to clean that up, do a little bit of dry brushing, and then we're going to put some wood varnish actually on it. So there we go, that's all the dry brushing done. So I've just basically accentuated all those moulded pieces and also the top and the bottom. So what's left for that one now is a bit of clear wood varnish to hopefully bring a little bit of a shine to it. So I'm going to do a couple of other experiments before we get to that. We've got our two wings, so I'm just going to bring the original back in here. I'm just going to place these back into the mould, and this is for the shrinkage. And as you can see, because of the very slow drying time, there's hardly any shrinkage in that clay, so that's a real plus point. What we're also going to do, we're just going to use a ball tool here. We're going to see if we can basically just scratch into the surface, so we're sort of like sculpting it, okay, just to see what we can actually do. And as you can see there, I'm just like going in, I'm just using the metal tool there just to really scrape into the bit that we used the cookie cutter on earlier. So I'm just really emphasising that heart just there. So even though the clay's actually dry, we can still scratch into the surface of it quite nicely. I'm going actually quite deep now, so I'm just going to take my craft knife and see if we can actually cut into it. So if using a chisel, then just chisel away from yourself. Never safe to chisel towards yourself. So I'm really gonna cut into that. There we go. Look at that. Yep. So it does act exactly like a piece of wood. That's really quite interesting. There we go. So I'm just cutting into that, and unlike clay that would probably be quite brittle at this point, this does act exactly the same as wood. So if you've ever done any woodwork, you'll know what I mean when you just cut into a little piece of wood. There we go. So I'm just going to go round there. So it looks as though this little heart has been like chiseled into this piece here. So I quite like the way that actually does that. It does, like I say, work really well. Obviously, just be sure you've got a sharp blade, and there we go. So just exactly like I said, just like cutting into a piece of wood. Wow. So, you know, the 7 days wait, you just wouldn't get this sort of effect with a normal clay. So although 7 days, you know, is a long time to wait, you know, it's just something, it's something different. It's something different. So you can see you can really like chisel into that or cut into it as I am here with a craft knife, and you get some pretty good results. Exactly the same as if you were to cut into a piece of wood. So again, you can sand that if you should so wish. So I'm just going to keep on adding a little bit more texture into this, and then I'll show you what it looks like afterwards. So I'm just using a blunt ball tool here, and you can also press into the surface of this as well, really successfully. So unlike clay, there's no way you'd be able to do that to clay. So again, that's another plus point. You can really start to sculpt the clay even once it's actually fully set. So I'm going to leave it at that now, and we're going to then go in and we're going to get some wood varnish, and we're going to make everything look a little bit shiny. So a colour wash, we just need some brown paint, which I have right by the side of me. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water to that. You'll see it in a moment. Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to basically brush onto there, and then we're going to wipe it off. So I have a cloth on hand. Okay, so literally this is a paint wash. So if you've seen any of my videos, you'll know exactly the technique I'm on about, but will it work in the same way? So just going to get a clean cloth there, and we're going to wipe that back. That gives quite a nice effect actually. So obviously I've used brown there. I could have used any colour. So let's just brush that off. That's pretty nice. Obviously we don't want to overdo it with the water, because this is a water-based product, the clay. I'm just going to go around there just to neaten those edges up as well. Okay, so it's almost like giving it a stain, like a wood stain type of effect by doing that. And again, I'm just going to brush that off a little bit. So yep, that works pretty nicely as well. So that is my first coat of the clear wood varnish, and that already looks really nice. So I'm going to go over that with a second coat. In the meanwhile, I'm going to coat the other two projects that I made, the hearts and the wings. So here are all of the little projects that I created during this video. And as you can see, I finished them off with 3 coats of the clear wood varnish, and it really does bring out that beautiful detail, not only on the cast areas but also on the flat areas as well. Obviously with all of these I've used some brown acrylic paint to really accentuate some of the detail within all the pieces. But the big question is, would I buy Das Wood clay again? Well, it does have lots of pros about it. It acts cuts like wood. You can sculpt it once it's fully dry, you can sand it, and like I say, you can carve into it, you can paint it, you can add finishes to it like the varnishes. Obviously that's to do with DIY, but if you've got products in your crafting stash like the acrylic paint that I use, gilding wax is also going to work on here. So it has scope for lots of different products that you can actually use with it, and you can indeed create some absolutely beautiful little projects. But my only concern is the drying time. It is up to 7 days, so you do have to be patient. But if you are patient, then yes, I would absolutely recommend that you have a play with DAS wood. Well, I think that just about wraps it up for this video. If you liked the video, please click on the like button, subscribe to my channel if you're new, and why not click on that notifications button as well. This will allow you to be notified of all brand new videos that I upload to my YouTube channel. Well, until next time, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Take care and happy crafting.